Okay, so we are looking at understanding integers today, and we talked about the definition of integers are whole numbers, their opposites in 0. We've got some examples down here. So 3 is a whole number. The opposite of 3 would be -3. 0 is an integer. They could be big numbers like 1,000, -1,000. Some facts and characteristics about integers: you will not have fractions or decimals. And so over here under non-examples, we have some things that are not integers, like 4.2 is a decimal, so it can't be an integer. 5/6 is a fraction. We have a mixed number, -2.5. The negative is not what makes it not an integer, though, because we do have negatives with integers. We just don't have fractions and decimals. We don't have any pieces. They're all whole numbers or opposites. Okay, so down here, we have a couple of examples. And it says on number 1, we're going to graph 5. I'm going to give you guys something I didn't think about when I was typing this up. We're going to put next to that parentheses capital A. We're going to graph this as a point, and when you name points, they're usually capital letters. So we're going to find 5, +5 on our number line, and we're going to call it A. So +5 is over here. When you graph it, you put a point on the number line, and since I'm calling that A, I'm going to put a capital A right there. All right? So for number 2, it says to plot -3. -3, all the negatives are to the left of the 0. So I would go to the number line where the tick mark is for -3 and put a point, and we're going to call that B. So I'm going to put B there and label that B. When you guys, when we do this on reviews and assignments, a lot of times they're going to tell you what letters to call them. You just put a point where it goes, put the letter next to that. Now, some facts about number lines when we start adding negatives. The number lines you've been using forever since kindergarten, seems like forever. You've always had, I think, basically the positive numbers, and later they add in 0. So everything to the right of 0 is where you're going to see your positives. Okay? The positives, when you do your number line, always have to be to the right of 0. Shh. Johnny, mark for talking. You've been told. Okay? When we add the negatives in, they are the opposites, and they're a mirror image. So when I count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 to the right, the integers do the opposite, -1, -2, -3, going to the left. So on the left side of 0 is where your negatives are going to go. They always have to be set up that way. The negatives are always to the left of 0. The positives are always to the right. You cannot flip those. One year I neglected to say that, and I had a student draw a number line with the positives on the left and the negatives on the right. Whoever invented this did it this way, and it stuck, and this is the way it's done when you have a horizontal number line. Now, on the side, oh, actually, one more thing. 0 is sort of the middle. It's sort of that line of symmetry, if you think about this as being a mirror image. And we call 0 the origin. We didn't really have to do a definition for that. I just want to label that on the picture, that that's the origin, and that's a word we're going to see a lot for sort of the starting point when we plot points. If you look along the side over here, we have a vertical number line, which looks a lot like what you would see if you're looking at an old-fashioned thermometer with the mercury in it, or whatever it is they use in them now. They're not all mercury. They have the red stuff. And so when you have a vertical number line, your origin 0 is still in the middle, but your positives are always going to be up, and your negatives are always going to be down, just like they are on a thermometer. And you can't switch those either. That's just the way it is. We don't get to change it. Okay, so part of the middle school standards does say you have to be able to plot points on a horizontal number line and on a vertical number line. So I want to do number 1 and number 2 again, but over here on the vertical number line. So number 1, we have to do 5. So 5 is going to be up here I'll put a point A for that. It's above 0. And then -3 for B would be down here below 0. So I'll put a point. A point's just a dot on the number line, and B. So you really have to make a point. You cannot just put B next to it. If you're not drawing the point, you don't get full credit. Because when it says to plot, what that means is you're graphing a point. Okay? It's going to be especially important towards the end of the week. We're going to do coordinate graphing where you have an x-axis and y-axis. We've all seen that before. But it's especially important with that you're actually drawing the point. I had some students last year just putting letters and no points. It's a big deal. You have to label it and put the point. Okay, so the title of this lesson is Understanding Integers. Why did they come up with positive and negatives? I will tell you just from the history of math where this began. When people first started writing, the first writing that you can actually see that's on like stone tablets now, they wrote it in mud and dried them, are accounts of people getting money in and money going out. And so negatives were invented to represent money that was owed, money that you owed someone else. And positives were money that somebody owed you or money that you had coming in. And that's where this all began. 0 had existed for a long time. Somebody made it to look like a hole. It meant nothing. It was a hole in something. And then negatives came along to represent money, because money was one of the first places people really needed to have numbers to keep track of things. It's been around a long, long, long time. All right, so if we're talking about positive numbers, sometimes when you're first learning about positives, they'll put like a plus sign in front of a positive number and maybe say +5. But typically with positive numbers, they're just normal numbers, and we're just going to leave it as a normal, ordinary 5. Can you put a plus sign in front of it if you really want to? But you might get confused later, because I won't be. If it does not have a negative sign, we assume it's positive. And what positives represent are things that are above. So like with the temperature that we talked about being above 0. If you're talking about an increase, a gain, something that's going up, those are all positive things. And there's a lot of other words that you could come with that mean the same thing. But anything that's above, that's going up, you're gaining, that's all going to be represented by a positive number. Negative numbers, when you have a negative, you have to have that little minus sign in front of it. We call it the negative symbol. It's just basically a minus sign that sits right in front. It has to be in front. It cannot be behind. And it either means the opposite, which is kind of where this came out. It's like the opposite of having money is owing money to someone else that's going out. It can mean something that's going down, something that's under, like we think below 0, under 0 with temperature. It can be a loss. It can be a decrease. And there, guys could probably come up with other words that mean the same thing. But these are the types of words we look at when they're being asked what integer you could use to represent something in real life. This is how we decide if it's something positive or something negative. So the main thing we're going to look at today is just assigning an integer to a situation. So it says up here, which integer represents each scenario? So number 1, an elevator rises 2 floors. So first of all, I see the word rises. I'm going to circle that. That's something going up, so that means positive. I'm just going to put a little plus sign to remind me that's positive. And then they also have the number, it's 2. So when it says which integer represents this, I have to actually write a number. So it's just going to be positive 2. So you could write +2 if you really wanted to. What I'm looking for, though, is just an ordinary positive 2. Just a 2 with nothing in front. Okay? So a 1-point deduction in gymnastics. So deduction, do you guys know what that means? We don't really have gymnastics here. But I like to watch it in the Winter Olympics. A deduction, you get a deduction if your work is late for class. So that's when they're taking points off. So that's negative, and then they have like the 1 over here. So a 1 point deduction we would represent as a -1. It's something that's going down. And it's related to subtraction, which we'll get into a little bit more with the operations, but negatives really are related to subtraction. That's why they have a minus sign that goes with them. So a plant grows 3 centimeters taller. So it's growing 3. Tell me what you think that would be. Shay's hand was up first. +3. Good job. Brian, do you want to help me with the next one? So it says removing 5 plates from a stack. So removing, they're taking it away.
I think it might be -5.
I think it would be -5. Good job. All right, on number 5. It says 5 more centimeters of rain this year. Who wants to help me with that one? I'll just start calling on people if you don't volunteer. Shay, you've already done one. Brian's already done one. So there's 4 other people. So TJ, why don't you help me with that? 5 more centimeters. How am I going to represent that one? +5. Good. So a 2-point loss. Rhett, tell me what that would be. -2. Very good. Because it's loss, so that means minus. More meant plus on this one. Johnny, help me with number 7. 3 fewer centimeters of snow than last winter. We've had more than 3 fewer than last year.
-3.
Good job. -3. Okay, Silas, you're going to help me with number 8. A $10 price reduction. That'd be -10 because it's taking, now that's, we think of that as positive when the price gets a reduction because it means the price is going down. But it would mean that the price is losing 10, so that would be negative. Number 9, a 9-kilometer decrease in distance. Shay, you want to help me with that one? -9. Good. And then adding 7 new pictures. What would that be? Brian, you said you finished it. What would number 10 be?
A +7 or regular 7.
+7 or regular 7. I like it. I'm just going to write a regular 7.